What to know before getting stem cells. So my name is Dr. John Hughes. I've been in this valley since 2009. I came here primarily on invitation of Dr. Dave Jensen and worked with him as in his big space in the Mid-Valley, and then ended up going out on my own a few months after working with him. Most of my practice is built on giving injections, so I've been doing lots of different types of injections for most of the 8 years that I've been here. I have no material interest or investment in any stem cell companies or products. Good to know. All right, so what we'll talk about is stem cells as an introduction, mesenchymal stem cells, and pluripotent stem cells, and then how to make a decision. Like I said, really I want to help on just differentiate between bone marrow derived stem cells and fat derived stem cells versus pluripotent stem cells. So the bone marrow and fat stem cells are called mesenchymal stem cells. Oh, so you'll see in a sec. I'll probably repeat myself a few times in this. So years ago, we had this big stem cell debate in the country, and I don't know if it was when George W. Bush was president or right after that, but the whole question was, do we give embryonic stem cells? Do we give permission for these aborted fetuses to be, taken apart and, use those stem cells in adults? And so at that time, I think there were maybe 12 or 13 clinics that were granted access to those stem cells, and they were used mostly for research purposes in the U.S., and they weren't readily available to everyone. They were expensive, and they were not autologous, which means they were not derived from the same person and given back to the same person. Adult stem cells came along a little bit later, and we'll talk about what time period. They were derived from bone, adipose tissue, or blood. They required good physician expertise in harvesting these cells. Harvest just means we're taking them out of the body and making them into a stem cell component. They're readily available, they're less expensive, and autologous use is permitted in the United States. Widely available. That's been the popular, way we think of stem cells in the, 21st century. What do we mean by potency with stem cells? And that's kind of what we're going to go through. I guess I could look at this. I like to stand in front of here. This table's in the way. So embryonic stem cells are the only real totipotent stem cells we think about. So totipotent stem cells are stem cells that can turn into anything. Right? Other stem cells, they can turn into new totipotent stem cells. So they're multifaceted. They form all cell types in the body. They're used for early embryonic development. This is what was so attractive about the embryonic stem cells at the beginning, because they're all totipotent. They can turn into anything. Pluripotent stem cells are cells that can form in any kind of germ form. Right after conception, what you get is what's called a zygote, and then that's a couple cells together. One's from the male, one's from the female, one's from the egg, and you have this zygote that means. Some people say that's the beginning of life for human life, and then you get an embryo. Well, embryos have to develop into different types of body parts, right? Organs, skeleton, eye tissue, nervous system. So how do they do that? Well, they go through 3 germ layers. It's called the endoderm, the mesoderm, and the ectoderm. I know this is a little bit of a scientific embryologic lesson. The pluripotent stem cells can form any cell in those germ layers. They form any kind of tissue that we get from that early. Some people call these stem cells blastomere or epiblastic-like stem cells. It's because they can form any cell, which can ultimately form any tissue in the body, except for the totipotent embryonic stem cells. It doesn't go backwards. So that's why you see the lines going down. So it does not yet have a specialized trajectory of development. It's more than a baby, it's more of a young cell. It's kind of like a 1-year-old. So you can still differentiate, hasn't quite learned to walk in a certain way, so it can turn into any cell. Multipotent stem cells. They're derived from cord blood, bone marrow, fat, and muscle. They usually just form certain types of cells that are in the mesoderm. So mesoderm, mostly we think about this as connective tissue or organ tissues. As a trajectory, it's more like a teenager. We think about these cells, they form into lung cells, pancreas, skin, heart, and muscle. But multipotent cells, they're restricted to a certain germ line. So that's germ line. So this is what's called the germ line. Ectoderm line, mesoderm line, or endoderm. Ectoderm line is kind of the inner part of our body. Mesoderm is kind of the organs and the tissue, and the ectoderm is nervous system. That's the easiest way to think about it. You type in embryonic germ line on your Google search engine, you can learn plenty about it. But that's the basics of these. And what happens when you get a teenage type cell, multipotent cell, is that they're only forming certain types. They're already oriented. So you'll understand why that's important soon. So mesenchymal stem cells, we call these multipotent or unipotent type cells. A guy named Alexander Friedenstein, he discovered these in the 1960s, and he started realizing that you could take these cells from bone marrow and they could differentiate into other types of mesenchymal tissues. Mostly, this was done in vitro, so he didn't do it inside the body. He did most of these studies with bone marrow, and he took them out of the body, manipulated them a little bit, and said, hey, we can turn bone marrow into different types of mesodermal tissues. So he was excited about that because he could turn bone marrow from one patient into bone marrow into another patient and have a good bone marrow transplant. Bone marrow transplants were some of the earliest stem cell transplants that were authorized for use in the United States. So this question, are they truly multipotent or unipotent? Like I said, Friedenstein, he did a lot of this in vitro, and he realized that, okay, this works in vitro, you can turn it into different cell types of the mesoderm, but not into, it doesn't always work in vivo. In vivo means inside the body. So define, what are mesenchymal stem cells? Mesenchymal stem cells are loose cells embedded in the extracellular matrix. They're a mesh of proteins and fluids that allow us, which is a mesh of proteins and fluids that allow cells to migrate. It directly development into certain types of morphological structures, mostly bone, connective tissue, cartilage, lymphatic and circulatory systems. And that's what we just talked about before. These types of stem cells, they carry over 480 growth factors. That's important. They're kind of a really fancy PRP type cell. They're isolated mostly from fat and bone marrow. Why we use fat is because it has about 10 times more stem cells than the bone marrow. The United States doesn't love people doing fat. They come down, the FDA's come down on several clinics. That's why clinics like Regenex, Stead and Hawkins, they're using mostly bone marrow. However, bone marrow doesn't have as much stem cells in it. Anybody ever had stem cells? Had stem cells. Did you have bone marrow? Yeah, and so those are great stem cells. At the same time, they're not going to have as many stem cells as the fat.
Why does the government not want you to use fat?
Partly the reason I think is you have to manipulate fat a little bit more. And you have to break it down. There's more potential contamination. At the same time, fat is probably a superior source for certain types of tissues. And this is what we'll get into later, that fat likes to turn into fat types of tissues in general. So if you're going to do a breast augmentation that you don't want, like implants, you just want to, or if you do want some kind of implantation of fat, maybe you want to build up your cheeks or something, putting fat stem cells in there helps those fat cells survive. Otherwise, you put fat, you transplant fat fat from your belly to your butt or your breast or something like that. These are clinics, South Florida, Miami, Southern Cal. They're doing this all the time. But if they put fat stem cells in there, the fat cells survive a lot better, and they have nutrients and blood flow and growth that helps them. But you have to manipulate the fat a little bit more, and that's kind of why the government doesn't like to do it. Other people are maybe making claims that they should. Now, would you want to put fat into a joint? Maybe, maybe not. It's unproven really that these cells actually turn into new cartilage, for example. Even with the bone marrow, we're unsure that the actual cells turn into cartilage. We'll get into that in a minute. So how do they work? Mesenchymal stem cells. As we saw at the beginning, the mesenchymal stem cells, they come from pluripotent stem cells. Pluripotents are like a 1-year-old stem cell, right? They've already partially differentiated. Differentiated means they have a development trajectory. So they've come from a 1-year-old to maybe like an early teen. They've already been thinking about what their career is going to be. And they continue to start to specialize. So they're developing already into something. So they must be activated. So oftentimes these stem cells are mixed with human plasma, which is activating. Human plasma has self-signaling molecules and other components that activate it. And they're considered multipotent because their specialization is only limited to a certain amount. The best way to think about it is a teenager who's already got a couple career ideas in their mind. There's research that suggests, and this is mostly in vitro, which is in a petri dish in a test tube outside the body, that these cells are able to go beyond the boundaries of producing specific types of tissues that they come from. Fat cells like to go to fat cells. Bone marrow cells like to go to bone marrow cells. That's what they're really good at reproducing and turning into. However, you can sometimes manipulate it and change it in a fat cell to go into a bone marrow cell or something like that, or to cartilage. And that's kind of what the research out there is kind of all targeted at making these cells go into the right types of tissue. How do they work? The best understanding we know is they modulate immune cells as well as endogenous tissues. So the tissues that they are put into, they modulate inflammation, and they help, they interact with nearby cells. Most of the benefits you get from these mesenchymal stem cells, so you throw the stem cells into a joint or a ligament or tendon, which is what I do a lot, they dump their molecular contents. So instead of those cells actually becoming different cells, what happens is they open up their cellular contents, and those cellular contents go and do their magic. Anti-inflammatory factors, growth factors. The problem is the therapeutic effects are short-lived. And the reason is that a lot of these cells, they only last a month. Less than 1% of them last longer than a week. You got stem cells, fat and bone marrow stem cells, maybe. Those cells are not even around a week later. Have they turned into new fat? Maybe. Have they just emptied their cellular contents and they're doing something like a growth factor like a fancy PRP would do? But is there anything more? The other issue is they're limited in numbers, so we only have a certain amount of them. So this is going back to what we've used clinically with these cells. We've used it for bone marrow transplants since the 1980s. Very expensive procedure. We've been injecting fat to help support the growth of new cartilages in joints. The key with the whole lecture is that a lot of practitioners think that these stem cells are turning into new cartilage. What I want to make very clear for orthopedic patients in here is that these cells are not necessarily turning into new cartilage. They might be turning into the bone marrow, they might be turning into fat, but most of the reason they work is because they're reducing inflammation. So they calm the inflammation down really, really well. 6 months to 2 years, maybe even longer. They have plenty of growth factors and then modulate the immune system. So if you have rheumatoid arthritis, this could be a great type of treatment for you. If you have osteoarthritis, this might be great for a year or two. but not necessarily long-term the best cell to use. And the reason is they're already developed on a certain trajectory. Building up your fat, you know, if you want to do these as breast or buttocks or lip augmentation, these are some of the best cells. The challenge is it's not always easy to get these cells. So the other issue is outside of the U.S., if you want to go, they'll grow these cells up for 3 weeks. So instead of having a small amount of these cells initially that we can only harvest, because in the United States, if you harvest these cells, you take them out, and in 24 hours you have to put them back in. So most patients that come in, they get the liposuction, pull it out. And I've done this on patients, of course. I was trained to do this. It's not something I do every day or even want to do long term. But these patients, they get the liposuction and then they come back the next day or 4 hours later, they get them put back into their body. Problem is, you have a small amount of cells, so you go to other countries and you can get those cells grown up and then re-put into your body. They can multiply several, you know, I think the number is about 50 times. So they grow up to a lot more cells. The problem is the older these cells get, the less effective they are. You know, the more, they're not as nimble and as activated the older they get. So you get kind of a law of diminishing returns if you grow them up. So, and like I said, the other challenge is they're best used for transplantation into tissues, which they evolved from. So if you need more breast augmentation or subcutaneous fat, you can inject that. It's great. However, it's not always good for tissues that are not the same. Most effective uses are same tissue transplantation, like bone marrow to bone marrow, fat to fat, joint conditions, if it's an autoimmune or it's a systemic inflammation that can't be calmed down in other ways, or autoimmune disorders. Type 1 diabetes responds well. Some people with like graft versus host disease, people that have had sort of organ transplant types of conditions. I'll list a whole table here that we can go through and look at those. And this is kind of blown up a little bit, but you see even they're actually injecting these in the heart and having amazing success with myocardial infarction, so heart attack. So diabetes 1, lupus, pulmonary fibrosis, renal failure. So good results. The deal is you're still having to take fat from your body, and you can only for some people you can only take so much. Okay, what's the biggest danger? Danger, it's not really pleasant. It's not unpleasant. I mean, terribly. I mean, anybody ever had this done? No. I mean, anybody ever had liposuction? So bone marrow, how was it? Okay, so they did it. You had a good practitioner. Probably did a great job of pulling it right out of your pelvis, probably, and had no problems. You probably wouldn't really do that every day, but wasn't a challenge. The problem is a lot of patients have to repeat the procedure to get, long-term benefit. The MSCs, they reduce inflammation for a couple of years, sometimes longer, but a lot of patients end up having to do it again. Bone marrow, I have no problem with that. It's really not that dangerous procedure. The bone grows back. It's not that hard to access. You can see these people over here. That's the buttocks of a person, and they're about to do it. So the biggest challenge is I think they're being sold as like, we're going to take these stem cells and we're going to turn them into new tissue and you'll never have pain again. And that's what I get a little concerned about, is that I'm not convinced that these are the whole case. Well, because it will reduce inflammation. It's now grow what's already there, get cartilage. It's still in your knee. It might be all you need. It might be perfect treatment for you. Don't have any cartilage and bone on bone and you're trying to avoid knee surgery or back surgery or hip surgery, then this might be a band-aid that gets you through a couple of years, but it might eventually have to be replaced. So, all right. The other danger is that because these cells modulate the immune system, they can predispose the patient to more infections or even cancer. And this is a little more with the fat stem cells. Some patients did develop more viral infections because they had an immunosuppression or immunomodulation Other MSCs, when they were engrafted into rats, they kind of clogged up the renal tubules. So they can lead to chronic kidney problems if you give them IV, because they're such big stem cells. Otherwise, minimally invasive. Overall, I've seen great results. I mean, I've used them. When we used them, we were treating a brain injury patient, and he said it was one of the best things he had done for his brain injury. Calmed all the inflammation in his brain. And that was just an intravenous treatment. So for brain injury, for that patient, we just did intravenous in the vessel. So pluripotent stem cells. So this little diagram just says these cells are like little babies. They can turn into almost any kind of cell that's in the body. So Professor Young in 2004 presented a paper about these cells. And he talked about, and this has got a lot of information into it. I just took it from his paper. It's got a lot of information about how these cells develop from what's called progenitor cells. And originally, the cells were not even visible. You know, we didn't even see them under a microscope. They're like nucleated particles is what we call them. And nobody even thought they existed. Dr. Young started researching this a little more and said, wow, you know, there really is something here that's going on. And he realized that there were pluripotent stem cells in the blood as well as in the connective tissue. These stem cells, you know, had a really long lifespan, probably because they're like 1-year-olds instead of teenagers. So they continued to develop over lifetime. And they were also they weren't tissue specific, so they weren't going towards a certain lineage of cell, but they could be turned into anything. So Young did a lot of research on that, and he wanted to find out what these cells could turn into, and so that's what he spent a lot of time. This guy was a researcher down in Mercer, Georgia, as an anatomy teacher, and he just started researching these and had great success. So a little bit of this is extra. He realized these precursor cells could be tissue-specific progenitor cells or lineage-committed. So he found a lot of cells. Lineage-committed, we're talking about germ cell line. This is kind of early embryonic lecture here. Ectodermal, mesodermal, endodermal. Or lineage uncommitted. What we're interested in is lineage uncommitted cells, which basically means they're like little baby cells that can turn into anything. So, like I said, these are called blastomere-like stem cells. That's pretty much what defines what a pluripotent cell is. Blastomere, just to give you an understanding, blastomere is the early embryo before it started to differentiate into other types of the embryonic development. So, understanding how these work, we're going back to the first lecture first slide or two, I talked about what's the endoderm, what's the mesoderm, what's the ectoderm. And very simply, endoderm, internal organs, digestive tract, lung cells, thyroid cells. Mesoderm, middle layer, we're thinking about more like skeletal muscle, cartilage, red blood cells, bone marrow, that's what we talked about before, fat. And then ectoderm is more like skin and nervous system. Neurons of the brain. What I really liked about the cells, how I got into this is I started treating brain injury patients. This was more of an interest of mine for brain injuries because I wasn't sure what to do with these patients. And I wanted to use something that wasn't a mesodermal cell, but using an ectodermal cell. I knew that would affect the nervous system tissue in a way that might be regenerative. So, just to prove that these lineage unspecific blastomere-like cells, uncommitted blastomere-like cells, could turn into anything. Henry Young basically was able to outside and in the lab turn into, show that these cells could turn into all these different types of things. Pancreas cells, liver cells, cartilage, smooth muscle, pretty much any kind of cell in the body. So how do they work? Like we said, they can turn into any cell in the germ layer, the ectoderm, mesoderm, or endoderm. We show that, these neuronal studies, hematopoietic, diabetic, chondrogenic, all these studies have looked at muscle, cartilage, all the cells could actually turn into those. And then activating these cells was a real component of how tissues are restored. This is what happens. You're a kid, you bust your knee, these stem cells go straight towards helping you sprain, whether it's a knee injury, whether it's a broken leg. These cells are the ones that are probably helping you heal. Now, the other cells, these kind of stem cells are all around too, but what gets activated first are some of these cells. We won't go. Anybody have any questions? Confused everybody? Go ahead. You have these stem cells in your blood, these pluripotent stem cells. You break your knee, break your leg, you hurt your knee, you'll use these cells from the blood to treat that injury. Now, everybody has stem cells in the blood. People get more injured, have more release of stem cells. That's pretty much people exercise more.
So, but you said if the kid gets these as an accident, the kid he sprain or break.
Generally, kids have more active stem cells and they may have more of the stem cells floating around. So I think about these as like how a kid might heal more quickly than an adult because the stem cells are so active.
So they start rejection.
What's that?
No, naturally in the body.
Naturally in the body.
Sort of like the analogy would be like blood cells. The analogy would be like white blood cells come, they'll get an infection, they'll get
Okay.
right.
So you think I'm not talking about an injection does that, the body does.
Body does it. These cells are the first line of repair in my understanding of how they work for the body.
Well, then can you inject stem cells into where you're hurt to have it heal a lot faster?
Yes, and that's where we're getting to this. We can concentrate the stem cells, isolate and activate, so that you heal much quicker if you weren't activated or something. So that's the magic of using these cells. They're present in everyone. All it takes is a little stick in your vein, and you can inject, and they'll actually turn into new cartilage, new bone, new pancreas tissue. I mean, they've done these studies. A friend of mine in Seattle, Michael Brown, is giving these cells to patients with type 1 diabetes, and their blood sugar drops rapidly because they work that quickly to repair the pancreas. I'm sure that, I mean, when you think about it, they're not as immune modulatory. They have an immune modulatory effect, but they're not as much as a type. So a lot of type 2 diabetes is an inflammatory issue. So it's one that's acquired issue where, either it's insulin resistance for the person that has a little more extra adipose, and their body's, not able to utilize the insulin well. So give them things to help them do that. But it can be used. I'm not convinced it would help as much.
So these cells are the ones that come from an embryo.
These cells can come from an embryo, but you can also get them from anyone. So an adult can be 90-year-old adult can still use those cells. Now, a 90-year-old not going to be affected as a 20-year-old. That is, because those cells have been around for a while, but you can still activate them. You can still get benefits.
Do you believe in freezing them and keeping them if you're younger to have that on hand in case you need them later?
I don't know if you can do that literally in this country. I mean, you can do whatever you want as far as.
You can do it in China.
Yeah.
Here in the States,
You can freeze them. You just can't put them back in after they've been frozen. U.S. only allows you, to my knowledge, to harvest cells and and reading these numbers.
What have you got people in the banks that are calling stem cell bank? And then football players and some of their damage to the game, and then they go to wherever their cells are being kept.
That's right. I know there's stem cell banks for fat and bone marrow. I'm sure if you just called it blood, you're probably good. I mean, if you didn't isolate out the stem cells. Because people do that all the time. They go to the hospital, they know they're going to get a surgery, they don't want anybody else's blood. Like, take my blood from 3 weeks ago and use it. So people do that, and that's the blood banking. I think that's completely legal. I don't know if they would let you do this with blood-based stem cells. Maybe. But in the United States, they don't let you bank fat or bone marrow cells. That's what I do. As far as, because they don't, there's a risk of one of those cells growing up, and that will grow, turning into a cancer cell. And that's been the argument for years. I'm not sure how much research justifies that, because I think it happens so rarely. But start adding these growth modulators, and potentially one of those cells will turn into a cancer. So they don't want to just kind of reusing that cell. And then the dangerous thing about going to another country is easy to clean lab is, got meeting government standards, and what are those standards? So that's some of the dangers of going to other countries. Germany is probably one of the better ones. So clinical indications, we can use these for pretty much any cell we want. We can use it for diabetes, arthritis, Alzheimer's disease. I've been using it for brain injuries a significant amount in the past year and a half, and I've had amazing success. These patients get 30 to 50% improvement with their brain injuries, more mental improvement, more like libido, more sleep, more clarity, better balance. I mean, it's amazing, some of the brain injury patients, how quickly they recover. When we do this kind of with a unique process and use it up the nose, and patients do really well with that. We also get an IV. But we've had great success, and we've got another clinic in Lafayette, outside of Denver now. We work out of at least once a month. So this is a little video. This kind of explains what is happening. It's not the best video. Typhon Biotech is an Australian company that I've been working with. They make a specialized kit that helps isolate these cells. So I'm just going to give you their video. I have no material interest in this, but it's a good video.
Stem cells are cells that have the potential to differentiate into other cells with a specific function. They play an important role in the regeneration and maintenance of tissues in the human body and hold a wealth of potential in the development of new therapies. Sources of stem cells include human embryonic tissue and certain types of adult tissue, such as bone marrow, adipose tissue, and umbilical cord blood. Human embryonic stem cells, HESCs, can form a wide variety of differentiated cells and are termed pluripotent. Adult stem cells are usually restricted in the range of cells they can produce, but can be genetically programmed to behave with similar pluripotency in a process that creates induced pluripotent stem cells, IPSs.
That's what we're talking about.
While there is much potential in the amazing abilities of these cells, the use of HESCs and IPSs in regenerative therapies is hindered by the tendency of the body to reject the introduced cells, or because these cells can form tumors. To avoid the issue of immune rejection and tumor formation, adult stem cells can be collected, cultured, and reintroduced to the same individual. Research in this process has produced promising results. However, most adult stem cells can only differentiate into cells specific to the organ or tissue type where the stem cell is found. The search for pluripotent adult stem cells is a major area of stem cell research. While research has identified stem cells in adult bone marrow that can differentiate into many different types of body cells, the difficulty of harvesting and culturing these cells is a limiting factor in their use in therapies. Recently, Typhon Biotech has identified a novel pluripotent stem cell found in human blood and bone marrow. The cell is present in large quantities in the blood plasma and holds exciting potential for stem cell therapies and applications such as bioprinting.
So, you guys have any questions? That's pretty much my whole lecture in a nutshell. It kind of describes that in artistic form. The cells that I'm using, or the pluripotent type cells that we use now mostly, are released by the bone marrow. Usually it's a chemical reaction involving nitric oxide into the bloodstream. We actually help patients get more stem cells by putting them in a hyperbaric chamber before. Every 2 hours in a hyperbaric chamber, you double the amount of stem cells, floating stem cells in the body. So we use that. Some doctors actually use an IV CoQ10. We give patients other supplements, including blueberries. If you want to increase your own stem cells naturally, you can take blueberries every day. But that's one of the main, ways we increase stem cells when we harvest them straight from the body. Typhon is, one of the partners in our business because we use their kits to isolate and activate these cells. Orthopedic cases that, I didn't do this case. This was a Typhon case that came up with. This is a C7. So C7 is the back lower part of your neck. It's a proximal spinal fracture. The spinal fracture had not healed for 9 months. This is a very common thing for some patients. Non-union fractures. You can't really go stick a pin or a rod in there, so it's harder for the body to heal these fractures. So what do? So here's the C7 injury right here. Here's what it looks like. And then after they injected it 4 months later, this is an injury that hadn't healed for 9 months. It's almost fully back to normal. So these cells were amazing for healing bone. It's just phenomenal. Maybe there was something else. Maybe it was all growth factors. But what the pluripotent stem cells is, at least have stimulated some kind of new bone growth here.
So they injected this?
Yeah, so this is the broken, fragmented bone. You can see it right here, at the base of this person's neck. You can see another image here. And then here's after the injection, 4 months later, the bone's filled up, and you can see it fill up here.
Is this a young person or older?
I don't know.
What would the site of the injection be?
Back in the neck. Yeah. If you feel back in the neck, there's bony processes. Right above the biggest bony process on your neck is the one that moves. It's called C7. So if you bend your neck forward, that's C7. And that's where they inject it. So there's a 5 millimeter gap. What is that? 5 millimeters, half a centimeter. So a small gap. But the new bone formation actually filled that completely. It actually formed from the previous bone to gap that fracture. If this had been a non-displaced fracture, some people would say it was spontaneously healed, but it's a difficult argument. So something was happening with these cells, was basically what they're saying. So making a stem cell decision. We all have thought about stem cells, how, what they could do for our bodies. If they make it superhuman, is it found of youth? Do we need this orthopedically? And that's a lot of what I do. Brain injuries, still kind of on the cutting edge. You can do adipose anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000 in this country. Some people charge only in this valley. Vale Valley, maybe $8,000 to $10,000. You can do bone marrow. I think Stedman may charge $2,500 to $4,000, and how many areas you get injected. Or you can do the blood-based, and it's $3,000 or $4,000. So these, stem cells. For me, it's the idea of not having to use bone marrow or fat, which requires an OR, requires more invasive procedures, if I can pull stem cells that might actually be more regenerative from the blood, it's probably worth it. So that's where I've come down on this. I've studied stem cells, gosh, since 2013, and I haven't really jumped on the bandwagon of doing fat and bone marrow stem cells. Even though at one time I thought, wow, these are great stem cells, and they are. But I just didn't want to do liposuction on patients every day to help them, heal, and they'll only be able to do that once because it was such an invasive process. The other thing is, think about it. Bone marrow is not that invasive. Fat is a little invasive, but the patients that I worked on in training with fat stem cells, it took them about a month to heal from just the procedure. Anybody ever had liposuction? I don't know, but that's a little bit of a procedure you have to heal from as well. So it's one of those things that some of those stem cells have to go back and heal the area that you injected. So stem cells are attracted to areas that are most injured. So in general, they're going to go heal not only what you've done, whether it's the bone or the liposuction area that you invaded a little bit, they're going to have to go back and heal your tissue that's orthopedic or nervous system or whatever it is. So I like the pluripotent stem cells, and literally I got into them to treat brain injuries. It seemed like the best type of cell that we use for a brain injury. But as I've grown in my knowledge of it, orthopedically, I think it's been great. My friend Dr. Brown is a regenerative medicine specialist, interventionalist. He uses fancy equipment, CTs, and fluoroscopes. I introduced him to these cells about 3 years ago or so. And he used to do the fat and bone marrow stem cells, and some patients still do that with it if they want it. But now he only uses these cells. And he gets amazing results. He's like, these are the best cells for any of my patients. So I've just seen great results, and it's so far it's still underutilized in the United States. I just feel like it's important for all of us to know what's out there before you go and make a big commitment on using fat and bone stem cells. So, any questions about that? Yeah, you guys can. I've got about 10 more minutes before we have to go.
What about cartilage? It looks like this thing is not that far along for a lot of procedures. You talked about knee replacement, cartilage, that's an area I'm interested in. And our insurance companies paying for this yet? That's two, and it's Medicare.
Medicare and insurance companies will probably never pay for this.
If it's going to really work, then
there's a lot of things that work. That they don't pay for. I use ozone treatments sometimes with my patients for a variety of different infectious conditions, and they'll never pay for that just because it's not patentable. It's cheap. It's easy.
well, I've heard that it's about 50% cartilage. It's up to 50% success.
Now we did have. I take that back. We did have some insurance cooperative that have paid for it, and we have had some other insurance companies that have looked into paying for it. So in that sense, I think when people start getting success, they may. Medicare used to pay for PRP. I don't know if until 2008, PRP was a covered service under Medicare. You know the insurance world. So I think the challenge is you can get 3 cortisone shots in your knee, for example, a year, not do much harm to the tissue. We can give you 20 PRP shots. We gave you 100. So the only way I would see them paying for it is to give you a limited number of stem cell treatments that you can do within a certain amount of time. So as a business decision, not from a health perspective, but they would say, well,
So what is the success rate of cartilage? Because I've talked to one woman who had two friends that had done cartilage on their knees, and Florida, and they were successful. They're successful for a couple of years.
Everybody's different. Every patient is different. Like I said, there's no hands down, this patient equals that patient. Everybody's apples to oranges. There's no complete. And how you get the shot, how much plasma you get, or how much stem cells you get, it's hugely variable. I mean, there's not this like one drug that's 100 milligrams that's given to each patient. So, and the technique of the practitioner, I mean, when I go in there, somebody has really bad arthritis in their knee, I'm scraping away old tissue that shouldn't need it. There's fiber particles, there's hyaline particles. There's a lot of different factors in rebuilding the nature of the knee. So if you don't, get rid of the old house and you start building on the old foundation, it's not going to be a good house. You just dump stem cells into something you need. It may or may not work. There's a lot of people doing that. Because people see, oh, well, I'm going to make a bunch of money. And that's what, I hate to say it, it's going to draw on some of the seedy people out of the community doing it. So some people get great success with fat and bone marrow stem cells, and they never have to go to the doctor again. A lot of patients will, a couple years later, if they really need new cartilage and they don't just need to build up the cartilage that they have, they're bone on bone, they have no other cartilage, then I see them coming back and doing it. So,
what is the difference between PRP and this?
so PRP is primarily growth factors and cell signaling. So what we're doing with PRP is we're stimulating the growth of those tissues. Over 300 different growth factors in PRP. There's growth factors that insulin likes, which draw nutrients to the tissue. There's growth factors that cause inflammation. There's antifibrotic growth factors that break down scar tissue. It's basically helping the body stimulate its own growth of that tissue that's already there. It's not turning into new tissue necessarily. And that's the plasma-based symptoms of these plasma-like stem cells can turn into new tissue. We don't even see them working sometimes until 3 or 4 months later, and the patients call us up and we're so much better than we were, because that new tissue is taken out of time. A lot of times they'll get initial benefit just with the PRP.
Hey, if you're 62 and overweight, is there any chance that your procedure will?
What are you speaking for? What are you talking about an orthopedic injury or just a beat up knee? Okay. If it's a traumatic knee, somebody that's gotten beat up, fell off a ladder or something, it's very likely that it will help. If it's a knee that's completely, the body's always building up cartilage, it's always breaking down. So if it's a knee that's continually being worn down and it can't keep up with that cartilage breaking down, as far as building up, you're kind of on this, one step forward, one step backwards. If it's due to a trauma, it's very likely to be a problem. Because the other knee's healthy, it's likely that it's not simply a degenerative knee. But it does help to lose some weight. That patient is way overweight. I worked on a patient who was maybe 380 pounds or something like that, and he still got some benefits just with PRP. And he had a really bad hip. And hips are the hardest thing, hands down, for anyone to treat. That's why there's so many hip replacements. It's just stem cells, you name it, of any form, still the hardest thing to treat. But for knees, ankles, shoulders, backs, these cells are great. But for hips, even with stem cells, are gated. So,
Left knee.
yeah, totally.
Well, there's still, this procedure is still expanding.
It's still expanding. There's only
2017, there's all this research. It would be really hard to believe that this is not going to get better.
it's going to be even better and better. And I'm convinced the orthopedic world has not even yet caught on to these types of stem cells. I mean, like I say, I'm getting my kids from Australia. There's no one in the United States that does this. I mean, there's like maybe 10 practitioners that have this, including the research labs. So
I just can't see where this is really go somewhere. in 20 years from now, that this isn't going to be the answer.
Yeah, and you know, we're always creating stem cells. It's just placing them, where I see this in a fascinating way, is placing them so that they are activated and at the tissue that they can most benefit.
These are the two main stick that are the same condition, and it's cartilage on the band arthritis. Do you put some of one knee and some of the other knee, or
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I got it.
that's divided?
Yeah. I mean, it's all coming from the blood. It's not like you're taking it from that means cartilage. But there's nothing.
You don't need that double
When I do it, and every practitioner is a little different. Some practitioners take out 400 milliliters of blood. I take out about 100, 150. And that's usually plenty. You know, 150 milliliters of blood where we've got plenty of cells to put back in both.
and then the reaction to the lead would be anywhere between 5 months and something before it goes to the precursor.
Yeah, I mean, what we've seen is about 3 months now. Some patients feel immediately, better. So,
How often do you know the plans for that period loss?
we don't have the answer. I mean, so and you did the bone marrow stem cells, as I recall. So, I mean, and my recommendation is it might be worth trying. I mean, if you have, I don't know what you mean look like, but it might be worth trying these types of cells to see if you got significant benefit. The bone marrow cells are doing something different, something how they activated and extracted them. These are it, and that's where I see this magic happening. These cells all come from connective tissue. These pluripotent cells, mostly the blood, you get it from bone marrow, you get it from the muscle tissue. But how they're activated and isolated and reintroduced to the body is really the determining factor. And around the world, the Typhon company has about 10 clinics they work with. There's a clinic in southern Florida, and they actually take bone marrow and they mix it with the cells. If you do not, that can be another very tricky treatment. There's other clinics that use fertility and have had amazing success with helping women get pregnant. There's other cells that treat erectile dysfunction and inject it in certain areas of the body that stimulate, erectile function. So it's amazing what they're doing. A lot of these, they're making them homeopathic supplements, substances that they can use in an autoimmune condition. The Typhon company has had a lot of different avenues for their use. Osteoporosis is actually big, probably one of the biggest areas of research, and because they've seen such new bone growth just with these cells being introduced into beings. We've got a case study with macular degeneration, just because they're so uniquely able to turn into any person. Now, you need to do more than one treatment. I don't know if we have an answer on that, but for the patients with brain injuries, which are very hard to heal, we've seen about 10 to 50% increase in their mental capacity, usually after 3 or 4 months. So that's most of what I've done this.
That's probably permanent in the brain.
It's significantly, depending on what they do. If they go get another accident or get another injury.
That's probably a change for the
And at one time, we didn't think their neurons could heal. One time their scientific, understanding of the brain, we had no idea that we wake up or, create neurons. That wasn't until the 90s that we realized what neurogenesis was. But even with growth factors, they cut a piece of rats open, dump them in the hippocampus where we make a lot of neurons. And we've seen those pop up. We've seen new neurons. So we know that something is happening with the growth factors, even more so than the sense. What I've seen when I've done treatments only with growth factors, only with PRP in the brain injury patients, is that after about 2 months, an active time of PRP is about 6 to 8 weeks. And then the body either picks up but they'll hit a plateau. The growth factors, the patients will hit this like plateau, and they'll be like, well, I feel better, but I don't feel like I'm improving. Whereas when we started doing the stem cells patients, we do it with PRP one day, and then we do stem cells the next day. They do really, they don't feel that sort of initial charge that they might otherwise feel. Most of them sleep better, but after about 2 or 3 months, they start to feel like that. So that's the difference clinically from what I've seen with brain injury patients as far as plasma versus pluripotent stem cells.
What do you see with spinal cord injury?
No, I haven't done enough research. I've never injected into spinal cord. We've done plasma. We've seen patients have a little more feeling with their plasma, but we haven't done that.
How do you diagnose brain cell activity or change?
The best way to do it is functional MRI, quantitative EEG, or series scan, or what's called a SPECT scan. SPECT scan will say it's like a PET CT. They use it for cancer patients, but they're looking at how much the sugar, how much metabolic activity is going on in the brain. That's the most interesting way to look at it. And if we can show increased blood flow and increased brain activity before and after, then we have an idea that something is working. I don't have access. I mean, in our Denver patients, they're starting to do that more. There's none of that around. There's no functional MRIs. So we don't have the benefits in this valley seen it. So most of what we're doing is neuropsychological testing. And it's just basically a systematic test. They may kick us out of here soon. So, any other questions?
Do you have a code?
Yeah, absolutely.
What about osteoporosis? What's the process for that?
To my knowledge, they just use these cells, and they use a lot of them. They take about 400 cc's, 200 to 400 cc's, and I haven't done this procedure specifically for osteoporosis. They isolate the cells, usually takes an overnight, isolation, and then they put them back in. They don't do any injections, just IV. So, yeah, thank you guys for all coming out. I hope this is informative. Absolutely. Thank you.
We got lost.
Sorry.
Small town.
You need in the chair?
I hope that Medicare does cover this someday. I mean, it's not like.
So, it's coming on.
And they may just be waiting for the right cells. Because I think the fat and bone marrow is just so expensive, and that's why people haven't jumped on that as much. I know.
I'd say it doesn't really work for hips, but I mean, if it works for knees, because everyone's having knee
This is our brain injury class. That's not. You can call this number or email.
Yeah.
Well, they just let everybody.
My daughter has a
The autoimmune, I tell you, I'm not convinced that the fat stem cells might be the fastest way to go. But these pluripotent stem cells do great things as well. But, stem cells are amazing for autoimmune conditions. What we do see, though, even for MS, calm down all their symptoms, and then 6 or 8 months later, with the fat stem cells, you're seeing that it doesn't make them that much better. So, but it helps. Thanks for coming out. Yeah, I hope you're fine. Take care. Thanks for coming. Yeah, it's good to see you. Good to see you. You guys have a great week.
I remember when my son was little.
Some of them, it should be yours.
He had this whole thing, and it was a chiropractor from Australia, because you mentioned Australia.
Yeah.
And he came and